Daily Show, and my guest today is John C. Barber. He's the author of Examination of the Eye Made Easy. Dr. John, thanks for stopping by. Before we get to some of the questions, tell us a little bit about your background and your career as a doctor.
Well, I went to medical school at Washington University in St. Louis. Then I had to spend 2 years with Uncle Sam, so I went to the FDA for that time in Washington, D.C. And then I did a residency in ophthalmology at the Medical College of Virginia in Richmond. And then I did an additional 2 years as a fellow at Massachusetts Eye and Ear, which is part of Harvard Medical School. Then I went to work at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. I became chairman of the department there for 10 years. And then I moved to Pittsburgh in 1999. So I've run residency programs both in Texas and in Pittsburgh. So I taught about 90 ophthalmologists, and now I'm retired and
All right.
enjoying it.
I'm sure you're enjoying it for the work. Just for, I guess, a disclaimer, I had two eye surgeries on both of my eyes as a kid. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. So across Hey Doc, what is wrong with my eye and examination of my eye made easy? You simplify complex eye conditions to both patients and practitioners. What inspired you to make eye care more accessible, and what misconceptions were you most determined to correct?
Well, I was at a cocktail party at the Carnegie Museum, and three people came up to me and asked me, "Hey, Doc, what's wrong with my eye?" So I decided to write a book and tell people about the common symptoms of eye problems and what it meant and how they were fixed, that type of thing. Just general education for the lay public. Uh, I taught for 30 years, so I have an ability to explain to the patient what's going on in lay terms. I tried to do that in the book.
Okay. Uh, so also in Hey Doc, what is wrong with my eye? You address patient concerns in a very direct and relatable way. How important is communication style in building trust with patients? And what do you think most doctors get wrong in this area?
Well, I feel that if we explain the disease to the patient, they have a better opportunity to follow the medicines and look after themselves, and we get better results at the end. So I always try to explain that in lay terms what's going on.
Right. And let's talk about that a little bit. Because again, I had basically a lazy eye in both eyes, got patched both eyes, or
Mhm.
switching off and back and forth as a kid, which was really hard because, people were staring at you. What is he wearing this patch for? And all these different things. But they didn't really educate to the level. And I think that's so important for you to see that education process. Well, this is what's wrong with my eye.
Yeah.
Why the heck do I have to patch? And was that really the best strategy versus just having the eye surgery at first?
Well, your situation, I hope you did this before you were 7 years old, so you
Yeah,
got
5 years
recovery.
old. 5 years old.
But
Yes. Mhm.
the eye that's crossed gets turned off by the brain. And when it gets turned off, it loses its connection to the brain. And you patch the good eye to make them use the bad eye to get those connections back into the brain. That will go on up to age 7 or 8. And after that point, it doesn't work anymore.
Both eyes I had issues with, so I had eye surgery on both eyes.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
is that normal? Not really to have both.
Well, you were probably alternating, and you used one eye for a while, and then you switched to the other eye, and the eye didn't work. It wasn't used, got lazy, and lost its connections in the brain. And so you have to patch both eyes alternating, especially when we get back to where one eye is a little less than the other one. You'll use the good eye and ignore the other one. But it's important to straighten the eye first so that when it's both eyes are open, it's still used. So the surgery should be done before age 6 or 7 when you have that. There are various forms of crossed eyes. Some alternate, some are constant, and It varies a lot. I explain that in the book. Uh, there are chapters about crossed eyes, about cataracts, about corneal disease and glaucoma and retinal detachments to tell people what to expect. And they can ask better questions when they talk to the doctor.
No doubt. Now, let's talk about something that's really big. And I'm hearing it in podcasts now how they're complaining about it. People have gotten LASIK surgery. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with LASIK surgery? Do you think it's a good idea or it's not a good idea?
Well, I never did LASIK surgery, but I took care of people who got problems with it. Uh, LASIK's basically we're taking a laser and shaving off part of the cornea to change the curve. And that changes the focus in the eye. And if you're nearsighted, your cornea is too steep, so we flatten the front of it and it focuses on the retina then. And there are various ways of doing it. The first thing, you just took the surface covering off to decrease that, hit it with a laser, burn off, or in the middle, and you burn off the edges. That changes the shape. Then the surface grows back on. The other way is to turn it flat, where you have a special instrument that slices a part of the off the top. You pull that out of the way, laser the area, and then put the flat back. And that one has less pain, it heals faster, and that's what most people do now. Uh, the problem is that people want to get it too young, and the nearsightedness continues until you're about 25, and it gets worse and worse. And so if you haven't when you're 15, you'll need it again when you're 25. So but it's a popular thing, and they've worked out the kinks pretty well, and you have to worry about infection in the flap, so it has to be done just right. But other than that, it's a good procedure.
And I don't think in your career you're happy with how people take care of their eyes versus other parts of their body. Would you agree?
Well, the eye takes care of itself pretty well, and but people do abuse it, and they wear contacts too long. They don't wear goggles when they're grinding wheels and stuff like that, and they have accidents. They have problems, and there are big campaigns by ophthalmology in general to get people to wear safety garb and to take care of their eyes. But usually the eyes just take care of themselves.
Really? And so that's interesting. How does it take care of itself?
Well, the tear function washes away foreign bodies, and the eyelids protect the eye from a lot of problems. And as long as things drain, they usually don't get infected. It's when the drainage gets stopped that you get stagnation and bacteria can grow, and that's when you get into problems. Uh, Part of it is just neglect of safety matters.
See, I wouldn't think of a lot of eye injuries, but I don't see that on a regular basis. I've been poked in the eye as a former professional wrestler, not much, and it's as you know, we're choreographed, and I've been poked in the eye playing college basketball and basketball. Doesn't feel too good, but it's never been something really serious in those type of sports, getting poked in the eye. But it's in other accidents that happen all the time. It sounds like.
Yeah, well, the surface covering of the eye is pretty much impervious to most bacteria. And once you get poked in the eye, that gets scraped away. And there's a lot of nerves there. So one of the most sensitive parts of the body is the surface of the front of the eye. And so you get poked in the eye and you get a little tear in that surface layer. It hurts. But then that surface layer can migrate and recover the area that was denuded and take care of itself. Problem is, if you go swimming in a polluted pond after you've done that, you got bacteria all around, and they set up housekeeping, and they have a problem.
What do you see with cataracts? How do people stop when they get older to not get cataracts?
Well, when you're born, your lens is crystal clear. Put in a glass of water, you couldn't see it. By the time you get out of high school, it has a haziness to it, and it focuses, and that progresses. The lens gets stiff when you get about 45, and you need bifocals. and then it continues to change. It becomes white, and it becomes yellow, and then brown, and then if it's not taken care of, it'll actually turn black. And that there's a thing in there about the time I retired. There was stuff in the literature about people who take daily aspirin don't get cataracts, and also there was a thing about statin drugs might delay it. Now we know when I was at the FDA, we had an order to not approve anything with uh, um, oh, uh, it's a thing they use for lame horses. Uh, so, oh, I can't think of it right now, but you can buy it in Indian reservations in the United States. You can buy it in Mexico. I had a patient come to see me that had a cataract, and he admitted that he was taking DMSO for his arthritis. I told him it caused cataracts. He stopped, came back 6 months later, didn't have a cataract. So it's an aging thing, and most people are going to get a cataract if they live long enough. It may have to be 100 before they get it. Uh, I had a I had a cataract in my left eye 5 years ago. I had a stroke. They put me on daily aspirin, and now I see better than I did 5 years ago. So there's some thing in there that cataracts are caused by quote free radicals, and aspirin captured free radicals, and vitamin C captures free radicals. So there have been a lot of experiments, but we don't have a thing that everybody agrees works to stop cataracts.
More sleep, sleeping more help your eyes?
I've never heard that
I'm just
that
wondering.
would happen.
I'm asking that specific question. If you
Uh,
sleep more or you rest better, then let's say you don't sleep well, then or let's just talk about areas that are overused for eyes. How many hours should you be like staring at a computer screen? That can be for my business. I put long hours in. I'm working mostly virtual, doing podcasting where I'm, focusing right here on the camera to focusing on my computer, other hours. How many hours to like you really need to rest your eyes?
well, they're saying you shouldn't do more than about 2 hours at one time. It's the blue light from the screen. And so television sets emit a lot of blue light. And that's one of the things that may be implicated in causing cataracts. But the big thing is if you're working at a computer, you're probably not blinking regularly. You inhibit that, and that causes the surface to dry, and that can cause damage.
Mm.
So, you know, experts vary a little bit on how much you should watch the screen, but I would say 2 hours at a time. You quit for a little while, have a cup of coffee or something, then go back to the screen.
Hmm. Okay. With an examination of the eye made easy, you're clearly focused on education. What are the biggest gaps you see in how medical students or young doctors train today when it comes to eye examinations? And I'll repeat that question for you. With an
Okay.
examination of the eye made easy, you clearly focused on education. What are the biggest gaps you see in medical students or young doctors who are trained today when it comes to eye examinations?
I'm sorry,
I'll give you that
I didn't,
question again.
didn't have my phone turned off.
No, no worries. So, repeating myself, with examination of the eye made easy, you clearly focused on education. What are the biggest gaps you see in how medical students or young doctors train today when it comes to eye examinations?
Well, the University professors of ophthalmology about 20 years ago decided that too many ophthalmology programs were being cut, so they had more time to talk about reading MRIs and CT scans and the modern part of medicine. And a lot of ophthalmology departments were training residents, but we're not training medical students. And so I sat down to write a book that people could buy and learn ophthalmology outside the classroom. And I've taught many medical students and 90 residents in ophthalmology how to use an ophthalmoscope effectively. And there are little tricks that I include in the book. And there's certain things like having the patient fixate at one point to hold the eye steady. And there's other ways of avoiding the glare. When you shine your light in the eye, a lot of it reflects off the surface. And if it reflects back to your eye, it wipes out everything else behind it. So you have to learn how to do that. And basically, the eye exam with a pen light to check movements, check the pupil, and then you go to the ophthalmoscope and look in the eye. And I find that many medical students will stand about a foot away from the patient and shine the light in their eye and wonder why they don't see anything. They have to be within about an inch of the eye in order for the optics to work right so they can see the retina.
Hmm.
The retina is the only place in the body you can look directly at the arteries and veins and tell whether a person has diabetes, hypertension, arteriosclerosis, a lot of things. And part of the book, in the introduction, I say the doctor who doesn't examine the eye of the patient does himself and the patient a disservice because you pick up so many clues there, what's going on. And that's usually you start at the top and go down when you do the exam. And so the eyes are very early in the exam and you get a lot of clues from it.
Hmm. Okay.
And you have to know how to use it. And it works great. It's
All
a
right.
big help.
So, in your third book, In the Joy of Medical Practice, you shift from technical guidance to emotional and philosophical side of being a doctor. What keeps the joy alive in such a demanding profession, especially in today's health environment?
Well, when I retired, my wife told me she'd marry me for life, but not for lunch. I should keep busy. So I sat down and started writing up the patients I remembered. And I got up to about 100 of these. I decided to put in a book in case it might interest somebody in going into medicine. The editor's suggestion that I put in each chapter what that patient taught me. And it wasn't very difficult to do that. Uh, you keep learning constantly, and that's part of the joy of medicine. You keep learning. And uh, putting those stories together, uh, people that read it, especially doctors, say, "Oh, it reminded me of my patients." And so it was just a matter of keeping busy and writing that up. It's interesting to people who like Dr. Kildare on TV and things like that. They can read these stories about the patients. Um, most of the ones came out well. I didn't include the ones that didn't. That's just a
Yeah.
matter of uh, being able to keep busy and you bring back memories. And I say when doctors read it, they usually tell me it reminds them of their patients.
No doubt. All right. So we're going to connect all three books together. These three books each serve a different purpose: patient education, clinical skill building, and professional fulfillment. How do they collectively reflect your personal journey in medicine? And what legacy do you hope they leave for both patients and physicians?
Well, I put them in chronological order. So as I went through all these things, I learned more and more. And I picked up extra skills. Uh, when I was teaching in Texas, I learned to do things I didn't learn real thoroughly in my residency and fellowship. And it was just a thing I like to write, and I could write about that, and somebody might be interested in it. And so I published those books, and it's just a matter of uh, well, the joy of medical practice. The patients were the interesting part of medical practice, and I was at the universities, medical centers, and we got referred the difficult patients, and so we had to do interesting things with them, and sometimes we had to be a little creative. I had the nun who couldn't wear black, and we finally figured out why. She was allergic to mercury, and she had to wear the white habit. Uh, she actually had a what I would consider a miracle. Uh, she had a problem I couldn't fix. She wouldn't heal, and the nuns sent her to Lourdes, and she came back healed.
Okay.
And I had another patient that there was a surgical error that kept her from seeing well after the surgery. And she went to church on Wednesday night. They showed a movie, The Life of Christ. And at the resurrection, her vision suddenly cleared. One corner had let go and scrolled out of the way, and she could see again.
Wow.
And she was very religious. She offered me a Bible. I told her I had several. And we go from there. But it's those kind of instances where you had an old man that had gone blind, and he wrote a book, and he married the secretary who transcribed the book, and we did a corneal transplant on him. And several weeks after the thing, Dr. Dolman came out and said, "Well, we did this surgery so you can see your wife. Have you seen your wife?" He said, "Yep." And that was it. That was it. The different things like that happen that uh, make things interesting.
No, I definitely. How do you become some people become visually impaired? Like explain that where it's almost pretty much legally blind to a level. What happens there? Is that some that are born that way? It just varies.
There are so many reasons. Uh, I had a child that was born that way, and the family said, "Well, the sons of the father are vested on the generations, and they wouldn't let us operate." And he was born that way. You get children, mother has measles during pregnancy, and they're born blind. And kids that are cross-eyed uh, wind up lazy in one eye. There's cataracts, there's glaucoma. Glaucoma is called a sneak thief because you don't feel it. You just have elevated pressure, and it damages the optic nerve, and, and they can't see. And legal blindness is actually less than 2,200 in both eyes. Then you get a tax deduction, and that's legal blindness. Driving is 20/40 in most states. Uh, so that an accountant that gets down to that level is making mistakes because they can't see the numbers right. So various reasons being for loss of vision. When I told my classmates in medical school I was going to go into ophthalmology, they said, "Well, it's only a little bitty part of the body. You'll be so bored." But the eye contains almost all the tissues you find elsewhere in the body, except bone. But it's skin, it's muscle, it's nerves, all these things. So anything that affects those diseases that affect those cause can cause blindness. So there's such a huge variety. There's a 14 volume set of Duke Elder. Each volume is about an inch and a half thick, describing all the things that can go wrong with your eye. So that's 14 volumes worth of stuff.
Wow. Where's the best place people can purchase your books and stuff? Where can they learn more about you?
Well, they're available on Amazon, and you can put in the title, or you can put in John C. Barber, and it comes up. There's another Barber that writes a lot of books, and they're not about the eye, but you can get them on Amazon. Uh, you know, they're self-published through Author House in Bloomington, Indiana, um, and it's Ex Libris and Author House, and uh, it's Universe. Yeah, there's several different books,
Uh,
so I have them
Fantastic.
here.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay, let's check him out. Here's his book. Okay. Okay.
Joy of Medical
Okay.
Practice,
Okay.
Examination of the Eye,
Yeah.
and Hey Doc, what's wrong with my eye?
All right. Awesome.
Okay.
All of them
Mhm.
are available. And John, I really appreciate it. And we have
Yeah.
more. Okay.
There's one other book I wrote about my father,
Oh.
the one-eyed surgeon with only one thumb.
Oh my
And
goodness.
well, he had a hunting accident and lost his left thumb and left eye when he was 17 years old. Worked his way through college, through medical school, and practiced medicine for 30 years. So he spent 2 of those years in Greenland during World War II, patching up wounded soldiers. And he was an interesting person, very creative. So I wrote a book
Absolutely.
about him.
Okay. Well, we thank you very much, Dr. John, for stopping by. Appreciate it. And best of luck with all your ventures.
Very good. Thank you very much. I
All
enjoyed
right.
it.
You're
Okay.
listening.